A great heel can't be called a great heel if they can't draw heat. If they're good at their job, they'll become a reviled, antagonistic foil for those on the other side, with the crowd desperate for their comeuppance. But merely getting booed is the easy part. The key is getting booed for the right reasons, because not all heel heat is created equally. Sometimes, an audience will jeer a wrestler not because of their effective character work, but because they're sick of them as a performer, and not just a gimmick. There's a huge difference between loving to hate a wrestler and wanting them to disappear completely. And if a heel has viewers reaching for the remote control, that's not a good thing. So who are these ineffective guys and girls who drew so much go-home heat they probably should have emigrated to a whole new sport? Well, let's have a gander. I'm Andy for WhatCulture Wrestling, and these are 10 wrestlers who drew the wrong kind of heel heat. Number 10. The right to censor. The RTC seemed like a foolproof gang of heat magnets. Stevie Richards was on a preachy moral crusade to clean up WWE, covering up scantily clad women, interrupting hardcore matches, and converting fan favourites like The Godfather and Val Venus. The heat escalated with the angle. RTC were loathed, and they quickly became WWE's most reviled group. But unfortunately, while a chunk of their heat was from those who genuinely wanted to see them get their comeuppance, a bigger chunk came from people who just didn't want them on screen. And the longer their run persisted, the worse it got. Right to Censor were disbanded in May 2001, and none of the former members were able to recapture their lost popularity. Now, they weren't exactly pushed strongly beforehand, but Godfather and Venus both had particularly sizable fan bases. And yet afterwards, the audience wanted nothing to do with them, rubber stamping the RTC's failures as a whole. Number 9. Just Incredible. You might be surprised by this, but we're not going to talk about X Factor here, despite that theme song. Seriously, my massive ears are bleeding just thinking about it. Instead, let's talk ECW, where Juicy J was immediately pushed as a talented guy held back by his previous employers, embarking on a lengthy undefeated streak. But unfortunately, Mr. Credible just didn't look all that credible in ECW's wild environment. His conventional skill set just wasn't well suited to that unconventional world. The fans rejected him as a result, with the hatred peaking when Credible became ECW champion in April 2000. Some fans have pinpointed Credible's main event push as one of the factors behind ECW's demise. Now that's harsh, but his run was met with significant backlash, and he struggled to build any popularity when he transitioned to WWE following ECW's fall in 2001. Number 8. John Laurinaitis. Often held up as a corporate boogeyman whenever something went awry with talent relations, Big Johnny didn't become a regular personality on TV until 2011 when CM Punk dropped his name in the pipe bomb. He became Vince McMahon's stooge and was later installed as Raw general manager following a strike by the roster. John's rivalry with Punk continued, but it didn't take long for fans to grow tired of him. From his grating voice to his poor delivery and botched lines, Laurinaitis gave the audience plenty of reasons to reject him, and reject him they did. Things peaked when he was booked in a main event program with John Cena for Over the Limit 2012. But fortunately, WWE were sharp enough to ditch his act a couple of months later when McMahon hit Laurinaitis with a trademark "You're fired," and the viewership breathed a huge sigh of relief. Number 7. Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett recently scored one of WWE's most unlikely comebacks, peaking with the recent news that he's now on the creative team. Not bad for a man who once extorted Vince McMahon for $300,000. Allegedly. His TNA career inspires less devotion. As a founder, Jarrett made himself a 6-time heavyweight champion during his run, making him one of the promotion's foremost spotlight hoggers. Jarrett was loathed, and not in a good way. He dominated main events, holding the belt for almost 3 years over several reigns, and he never dropped it for long. Jarrett lost the belt only to win it back on the very next show on 2 separate occasions. He never fell far from the spotlight. TNA was his sandbox. The fans saw right through this, and he was branded Triple J very quickly. By 2006, Jeff's every appearance was met by chants of "drop the title" and "F you, Jarrett," which is quite rude, but not undeserved. Number 6. James Ellsworth. There was much anticipation heading into the first Women's Money in the Bank ladder match in 2017, but it panned out in the worst possible way. The match wasn't won by a woman, but a man. James Ellsworth grabbed the briefcase while the competitors were down, tossing it to Carmella, who was declared the victor. It was a sham, and the narrative didn't revolve around the women going all out to produce an exciting contest, but their moment that had been sullied by Carmella's Valley. Binned in 2017, Jimbo was brought back the following year, joining Mela in her rivalry with Asuka. Misery followed for the Japanese star. Her aura was shattered by a destructive series of Ellsworth-induced losses, and by the time Paige literally kicked him out of the door in July 2018, he had cemented his status among WWE's most loathsome sidekicks. Number 5. Michael Cole. Michael Cole has been part of WWE's broadcast team for close to 20 years now. Whether working as an interviewer or an announcer, he has been a constant presence throughout an era of immense change for both himself and the company. WWE have tweaked Cole's role in various ways over the years, with their worst experiment coming in 2010. For some reason, the company decided to turn him heel. He belittled the audience and certain babyface wrestlers, developing a smarmier persona that turned him into one of the most insufferable bellends in the entire company. From his spell as the voice of the anonymous Raw general manager to the horrendous feud with Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross, Cole had the audience wanting him to piss off forever. His bickering with his announce partners dragged every broadcast down, with his character more concerned with getting himself over rather than selling any action going on in the ring. May this persona never return. Number 4. David Flair. David Flair is the most sympathetic name on our list. He was thrust into the spotlight with next to no training and was expected to play a prominent TV role despite this inexperience. Now, David started as a face but turned heel to join the NWO pretty early on, and while he certainly drew heat, it mostly came from a rejection of him as a performer. WCW hung Flair out to dry. They put him in a position that he just wasn't capable of filling. He started as a non-wrestler, but soon became an in-ring performer, and that's when his deficiencies really started showing. Sloppy, uncoordinated, and out of his depth, he was bewilderingly crowned United States champion in 1999, but was wisely shunted down the card as the years progressed, with WCW realizing that the experiment would never work. Growing up in his father Rick's shadow put David in a tough position. He was going to be compared to the consensus greatest American wrestler of all time from day one, which heaped the pressure on and no doubt stalled his development. He has since left the business entirely. Number 3. JBL. As one of the most loathed men in wrestling, John Bradshaw Layfield has a long history of pushing the envelope too far. An alleged backstage bully and boorish on-air presence, he was once a popular mid-carder as part of the APA, but has since become a lightning rod for controversy. In 2004, Bradshaw debuted his JBL character through a borderline xenophobic vignette that saw him literally hunting illegal immigrants on the Mexican border. Later that year, JBL caused Eddie Guerrero's mother to have a heart attack by threatening her at a house show and was hurried out of the building for fear he'd be battered. In June 2004, he tried to draw heat by flashing Nazi salutes at a German live event and was banned from re-entering the country as a result. That's without dipping into the myriad of bullying accusations that have dogged his career. Even during his lengthy run as WWE champion, fans found it hard to buy into JBL's heel act, as it seemed like he'd been pushed from mid-card to the main event overnight. Now, any jeers he draws are from people who are utterly sick of the man, though he did survive multiple calls to have him fired. Number 2. The Authority. The evil boss character type outlived its use a long time ago, but it's one WWE keep clinging onto. Austin vs. McMahon was such a huge success that they can't help but revisit it. But the angle loses more and more goodwill every time it's rehashed, and it's hard to think of a stable as tedious as the Authority. Triple H and Stephanie McMahon would regularly bury and belittle active babyface competitors with little comeuppance, particularly for Steph. Them and their revolving door of wrestlers, Kane, Big Show, Randy Orton, etc., dominated WWE programming, and while their loathed presence was accidentally beneficial to Daniel Bryan's incredible rise, they really dragged the product down. For many fans, the game's needless win over Sting at WrestleMania 31 was the last straw, and the stable's 3-year run finally came to an end when Vince McMahon disbanded the group in June 2016. But Stephanie has largely retained her role, and still has fans reaching for the remote control whenever she returns. She remains WWE's foremost momentum throttler, particularly when it comes to the women's revolution, whose tremendous progress she's never shy of taking complete credit for. Good old Steph. And at number 1, XPac. You can't talk about wrestlers drawing the wrong kind of heel heat without mentioning Sean Waltman, whose ring name has become a pejorative for situations like this. Now that sucks, because you know what? XPac was bloody great. He's one of the most underrated wrestlers ever, and he doesn't deserve this negative reputation, but he has it, so here we are. Late in his career, XPac was regularly booed out of the building, particularly when competing against wrestlers the audience perceived to be more exciting. Even for Waltman himself was rarely dull. XPac's matches became the show's designated bathroom break spot, and the hatred escalated beyond simple heel heat. People had grown to despise XPac on a personal level thanks to the way he was being presented. He was so loathed that XPac sucks chants became commonplace even during shows that he wasn't even booked on, and his 2002 release was met with celebration from those who'd somehow worked themselves into thinking that he, well, sucked. Now, if you can't tell, I'm not too happy that I objectively have to include Mr. Waltman here. Still, his name will always be associated with crowd reactions gone wrong, and the term XPac heat shall live on forever. So that's our list, but can you think of any other wrestlers who drew major go-away heat? Sound off in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then, you can follow us at WhatCulture WWE and me at Andy H. Murray if you enjoy La Parker gifs and weird Gangrel jokes. For now, I've been Andy, and I'll see you later.